Did I reorganise my entire bookcase just to take it down again? Yeah. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Meg. I buy too many books and I read. That's literally all that's going for me right now. As the title suggests, I'm going to go through my entire physical TBR, which is quite a lot. Do not be fooled. Yes, this is my bookcase, but there are books behind it because they're quite deep cubby holes. I have the books from my book trolley in my bedroom and a few other book stacks around the flat. So we're going to get into this. I have no rhyme or reason in the method that I'm going to do this. I'm basically going to try and keep this as organised as possible because I did spend quite a while doing this a couple of weeks ago. Before we get stuck in, I do want to preface, this is a collection of books over the last, I don't know, 3 years maybe? For context, started reading properly over lockdown. A lot of books were bought in that time, but I feel like that's justified. Everyone's got their vices. Mine was buying books. I'm going to start with the books that I have on my book trolley and I'm just going to get into them. I'm going to be fairly quick with this. I'm going to give descriptions on some books that I want to give descriptions on. Let's get started. I'm going to start with a recently purchased book, which is A Court of Mist and Fury. If you've watched my previous reading vlog, you know that I absolutely loved A Court of Thorn and Roses. I had to pick up this bad boy, so I'm going to be buddy reading this with Harmony. I've linked her channel down below. She's so lovely and I can't wait to get started on this with her. I definitely heavily influenced her to purchasing this because I really want to buddy read it with someone. I think it's a good buddy read book. But yeah, so the next one is Fangs. It's gorgeous. It's a graphic novel about a love story between a vampire and a werewolf. Very pretty on the inside. I mean, yeah, it sounds really good. There are some interesting books in here, okay? I bought these all for very different reasons. This is pre-study. Number one, it looks incredible. Number two, it's a true story about Patricia Lockwood. Father is a gun-toting, guitar-riffing Catholic priest. Her mother sensed danger everywhere. This is Patricia Lockwood's true story of identity, belonging, fancy chalices, and profoundly strange return to a family home. It just sounds really good. So also partially because of the name and the cat. I'm also including books on here that I plan to read again, that I have DNF, etc. Everything in that realm I'm including in this. So I've got The Book Thief. Big chunk into this, but I really just couldn't get into it. I had to DNF it for a bit. I don't know why. It was a few years back. I think there was some things about jobs and stuff. This just definitely took a backseat. I do have plans on picking this up soon. Next one is A Love Story for Bewildered Girls. Haven't heard much about this book. These three books I have never heard anything about, but they're very much books that I am looking forward to reading after having them on my shelf for a few years now actually. Sounds really good. Need to stop procrastinating and actually read these. So going on to the next, The Virgin Suicide, which again sounds terrific. It sounds really interesting. If you don't know, get to know. The other one's Bunny. I've heard an awful lot about this book. Nobody can actually tell me what it's about, but it sounds very intriguing. It gives me the vibe of you'll pick it up and feel like you're going on a trip, a psychedelic trip. But yeah, very excited to pick this up and read that. The next one is The Name of the Wind. I was actually recommended this by one of my favourite booksellers in Aberystwyth. I was like, you know what, I want a book that made me feel how I felt about Harry Potter the first time I read it. So she recommended this and I'm very excited to read it. I've heard fantastic things. The next one is Such a Fun Age. Again, heard fantastic things about it. I just feel like I need to be in a certain mood to read it. The next one's Animal Farm. I feel like with a lot of classics you have to read them at some point or another, so yeah, looking forward to reading that, I guess. The next one is Sweetener. This has been on my radar for years and yes, has this been on my bookshelf for a while? It has. Have I been in the mood to read it yet? No. Will I read it soon? Probably. 2023, I'm trying to read this book. The next one's actually a gift from my partner's sisters for Christmas. It's Dear Dolly. Yeah, really looking forward to reading it. I have her other book, which I still need to read, which I will go into later. I heard fantastic things about it. Just really looking forward to picking this up as well. How to Kill Your Family. Heard fantastic things about it. Am I annoyed I've still got the stickers on it? Yes, I am. But I've heard really good things about this book and it feels like a book, again, that I need to be in the mood for. Looking forward to reading that. I need to stop saying that because chances are all these books I'm looking looking forward to reading. The next one is The Bangalore Detective Club. Again, excited to read about it. Solving crimes isn't easy. Add a full-length sari, a jealous mother-in-law, and a disapproving glare of high society into the mix and you've got a problem. I've heard fantastic things about this. Some of my favourite bookstagrammers have read it and love it. So yeah. And also I've not really read like a murder mystery, especially from like a different culture, which will be really interesting to see how there's a twist on that as well, because a lot of my mystery and crime have like been set in like the Highlands and Scotland and stuff, or Agatha Christie. So looking forward to getting into this. I don't know how to pronounce it. Gonna try. The House in the Cerulean Sea, I think. I've heard that this is a book for when you want a bit of an escapism. I was gonna pick it up after my dog passed away last year, but just didn't have the heart to read at that point in my life. So hopefully I'll pick it up soon. Although there is a bit of controversy about it. I need to read into that though. I've not looked into it yet, but yeah. The next one, I have a thing for keeping books that I have bought in bookstores in their original packaging. So from Topping and Company in Bath, I picked up The Transition Baby, which is meant to be phenomenal. I will give you a little bit of backstory, a uniquely trans take on love, motherhood, and those exes who you just can't quit. Reese nearly had it all: a loving relationship with Amy, an apartment in New York, a job she didn't hate. She'd scraped together a life previous generations of trans women could only dream of. The only thing missing was a child. Then everything fell apart, and 3 years on, Reese is still in self-destruct mode, avoiding her loneliness by sleeping with a married man. Her ex calls to ask if she wants to be a mother. Reese finds herself intrigued. After being attacked in the street, Amy detransitions to become Ames, changed jobs, and thinking he was infertile, started an affair with his boss, Katrina. Now Katrina's pregnant. Could the three of them form an unconventional family and raise the baby together? It just sounds so interesting and very different to books that I have read before. So yeah, really looking forward to getting into this. We haven't even started yet. Okay, the next one. I'm gonna do a quick, like, try and just whiz through these next, like, 10. Christina Lauren, love them. Oh my gosh, probably one of my favourite romance authors ever. I absolutely love Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. I cannot recommend it enough. I think it's maybe their best book. I just love it. Anyway, The Soulmate Equation. Really looking forward to reading this. Right. I have a love-hate relationship with classics. Emma. I started reading it and I can tell you where I got up to. Page 66. Really hard to get into. I was trying to listen to the audiobook alongside it, but I just wasn't in the mood for it. So I'm going to pick that up hopefully this year. The Manning Tree Witches. I have always been really interested by the witch trials, and Manning Tree is actually very close to where I live. Loads of witch trials happened around my area. I think it's such an interesting part of history that we love to skirt over, like most parts of history actually. England and Britain actually just love skirting over. The witch trials are definitely just one of those areas of history I really wish I learned a lot more about, because a lot of my understanding comes from my self-teaching, and I think it's a very layered area of history where there's more to play than people thinking people are actually witches. But yeah, very excited to read this. Next we have the Book of Echoes. First of all, this looks beautiful. Secondly, this has been on my shelf for years and it's gorgeous, and I have no reason why I haven't picked it up yet. I'm just the slowest reader. Hopefully I'll try and get this finished in the first part of this year, fingers crossed, because I've been needing to read it. Okay, we've got the first chunk of it done. I think I'm gonna work my way up. I've got On the Shore. My boyfriend bought this for me actually. I think it was for an anniversary or something like that. It was on my wish list, but I've heard that this is beautiful. Yeah. I'm gonna try and whiz through these. The Widow. I got gifted this actually. The Wife. Jean Taylor's life was blissfully ordinary. Nice house, nice husband. Glenn was all that she'd ever wanted. Prince Charming. But then everything changed. Oh, bless me. Okay. The husband. The newspapers found a new name for Glenn. Monster. They shrieked. Jean was married to a man accused of the unimaginable, and as the years ticked by with no sign of the little girl he had been accused of taking, their lives were constantly splashed across the front pages. The Widow. But now Glenn is dead and she's alone for the first time, free to tell her story on her own terms. It sounds really interesting. I've never heard of it before, so looking forward to getting into that. I have partially read this, My Best Friend's Exorcism, and I hate to be this person. This is my problem. I buy books just before they get cool. Just before everyone's buying them. I bought this years ago. Have I read it? No. Has everyone else read it? Yes. But I remember when I bought it, I was absolutely fascinated by it. I did like there's videos on my Instagram, and I had the graphics all over it, made it look like a VHS tape, and I need to read it with the playlist. I think there's one on Spotify, but I need to read it with the playlist because I feel it will add elements of spookiness. But yeah, We've got The Secret History by Donna Tartt, Winterwood. Again, this is meant to be incredible and it looks gorgeous. Look, Lord of the Flies. I'm terrified of flying though, so I might have to get over my fear first. I've got The Paris Apartment, which I recently bought and is in that massive book haul that I did earlier on this year. 13 Secrets, which is actually the final book, I think, of a trilogy. Yeah, so we'll go through those as well. That's meant to be magical. That's meant to be really good. Okay, we've got Milk and Honey. I never had it. Like in 2014 when it was out and Tumblr was thriving, I never had it, so had to get Milk and Honey, obviously. Colour Purple, which I have been needing to read forever. You are slowly going to notice that most books on my bookshelf have not been read. Got The Bear and the Nightingale, which is meant to be an incredible read. Very excited to get into this. A Spark of Light by Jodie Picoult. Philology, which I really need to read. I got gifted this as part of a subscription box, so it's, I think, kind of a how-to book. We've got The Heights, which was actually gifted to me by Tandem, which is by the same author as Our House. The Raven Boys, which I heard a lot of people absolutely adore. Straight On Till Morning. I read the Beauty and the Beast retelling, I think, and I really struggled to get into it, but hopefully I'm gonna like this a bit more. I love Peter Pan, so any retelling I'm up for. First cubbyhole is done. I'm just gonna put that back together. Next up, we have The Taking of Annie Thorne, An Ember in the Ashes, which before I was a fantasy girly, which if you haven't caught up on my reading vlogs, I'm now a fantasy girly. Meant to be really good. This one is a sapphic fantasy, I think. So if you're looking for a sapphic rec, apparently this is fantastic. So it's Of Fire and Stars. If I could avoid it, I try to go into them completely blank so I don't have expectations, but yeah, meant to be fantastic. Kill Girls, which again everyone raves about. Trust you guys. What I don't trust you guys about, got a bone to pick. Actually I don't. Maybe I wasn't in the right frame of mind. A few years ago I read Six of Crows. First of all, this edition is beautiful. Far too beautiful for me to not like. So I am going to go and read it again. I buddy read it with people that love fantasy. At the time I didn't really like fantasy, so hopefully I like it second time round. Because I hope I do, because I have the second one. I've got Cricket Kingdom here, which is equally, if not more beautiful. Just look at that. A Shiver of Snow and Sky. This is meant to be like a thriller fantasy. It sounds really interesting. Yeah, I need to read these books. Next one is Orphan Monster Spy. That's really hard to say fast. The Doll Factory, which again, I heard so many good things about this book. I think what I might do is like one synopsis per cubbyhole just to get this video down. The next one is Rebecca. It's a classic, but I think I need to be in the mood for it. It gives me Crimson Peak, Sleepy Hollow kind of vibes to it, and I love me like a Woman in Black kind of vibe to a book, so yeah, looking forward to reading that. The next one is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. Sorry, it's really hard to say it when I'm reading it off the screen. This is meant to be really cool. It's a interesting vibe for a book. You know what? This is the one that I'll do a synopsis on. Patricia Campbell's has never felt smaller. Her husband is a workaholic. Her teenage kids have their own lives. Her senile mother-in-law needs constant care, and she's always a step behind on her endless to-do list. Me too. I always have a full to-do list. The only thing keeping her sane is her book club. Oh, I love it. I want to be in a book club. A close-knit group of Charleston women united by their love of true crime. At all these meetings, they're as likely to talk about the Manson family as they are to talk about their own family. One evening after book club, Patricia is viciously attacked by an elderly neighbour, bringing the neighbour's handsome nephew James Harris into her life. James is well travelled and well read, and he makes Patricia feel things that she hasn't felt in years. But when children on the other side of town go missing, their deaths written off by local police, Patricia has reason to believe that James Harris is more of a Bundy than Brad Pitt. The real problem, James is a monster of a different kind, and Patricia has already invited him in. Little by little, James will insinuate himself into Patricia's life and try and take everything she took for granted, including the book club, but she won't surrender without a fight in this blood-soaked tale of neighbourly kindness gone wrong. I love vampires. I love the Vampire Diaries. I need to read this. I need to read this very, very soon. The Other Woman. Again, there's a lot of these kind of vibey books on here, in all honesty, but yeah, this is meant to be really good, and I love these kind of setups for murder mystery thrillers, I guess. Yeah, I feel like you can't get bored of this kind of genre, this subgenre of thrillers. I don't know what the subgenre is, but I love it. Hold Your Tongue, which, first of all, that looks incredible, but again, sounds super interesting. Another real spooky thriller vibe to it. Got the other cubbyhole done. Next, we're on to this one. Okay, the first one is No Exit. I have heard nothing but fantastic things about this book. Another bookstagrammer recommended this to me a few years back. She was raving about it, so obviously I have to read it. I actually picked up a German copy of it for my partner because he speaks German. He wants to improve on his German like constantly. So I thought it'd be a good idea because I've seen now that they have film, I think, out for it, or the series, and I will not watch it until I have finished the book. So I bought him that one hoping that he can read it at the same time as me and then we can watch the series together, or movie, I can't remember which one it is, but yeah. No Exit. Next we have Us, which I think is by the same author as One Day, I think. I've got it here as well. So is this actually, am I being silly? Is this the second book? I can't remember. Us. I got a lot of Jojo Moyes. Actually no, I do. Ignore me. I do have One Day. Anyways, that is obviously that one done. Got One Day. Okay, I think I might have the other one somewhere, but I've got Jojo Moyes After You. I've got Jojo Moyes Me Before You, and I think I have, yeah, I think I've got the other one somewhere. When the Moon Was Ours. Gifted this by my very, very dear friend. Really looking forward to reading it. I haven't heard much about it, but one to watch. The Familiars, which I heard is meant to be awfully good. Kind of like I think it's The Peculiar Children. I can't remember what it's called. The Wonderful Peculiar Children. Someone's gonna know what I mean. Like Mrs. Penelope's Peculiar Children. Am I going insane? It's something like that. Anyways, heard it's a similar vibe. Very much looking forward to reading this. We Hunt the Flame, and I was gifted this very kindly. Yeah, I've heard a lot of really good things about it, but at that moment in my life I wasn't really a fantasy reader. But now look where we are. Am I on my fantasy era? Yes. Have I read one fantasy book and now think that I can take on every fantasy? Yes. Again, this is one that my partner gifted for me. It's a portrait of a thief, meant to be fantastic. Very much looking forward to getting into it. I purchased this one and put it in my book haul video, but it's Babel. Very much looking forward to getting into this. I think it's one I have to be in the mood for though, because that's a lot of dedication. The next one is really cool. So I was very fortunate to be gifted the ARC version of Malibu Rising. Yeah, proof copy. Very thankful for that. Super cool. Have read it already, but need to read it again. I think I'm going to read it in the summertime. Love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I literally sobbed when I got this. The next three ones were also in my haul video. So I've got Survive the Night, which is meant to be incredible. The Simple Wild. Another one gifted by my partner, Ace of Spades, which is meant to be incredible as well. Talking about books that I like to keep in their original packaging, I also got Slow Dates Fast Company, which again, I think I got this back in this time last year maybe, from a really cool bookstore in Notting Hill. Meant to be fantastic. I went in there with bookseller recommendations. I always do that. I go in there like, what book would you recommend? I'm in the mood for this right now. She guided me this way, so I'm very much looking forward to it. It sounds like a ride, and I love these kind of style of books where they're very much from like half an autobiography standpoint, half memoir. Sounds really interesting, and her life sounds very thrilling, so looking forward to getting into this. Moving on to my blue bookshelf, The Bucket List to Mend a Broken Heart, which was gifted to me. I did a book swap, so this is one of them that was gifted to me. I've got 9 Perfect Strangers, which I've heard interesting and very conflicting views on it. A lot of people don't like it, but I'm gonna give it a chance. I tried to go in completely blind, however hard that is sometimes, but yeah, looking forward to getting into that. The Day We Met, The One Memory of Flora Banks, The Hating Game, The Last Letter from Your Lover, which again is another Jojo Moyes. I've not heard too much about it, but again, I could be living under a rock. The Selection, which I've heard fantastic things about, and apparently everyone needs to read it, so I trust you guys. Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book, which is the same author of Coraline, so need to read it. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. I had to pick it up. The name was enticing. The next one is The Cornish Cream Tea Holiday. I feel like everyone has to have these kind of like feel-good books on their bookshelf, otherwise you're not really reading. Love and Gelato, which I mentioned in my book haul. Everyone loves it apparently, so. Okay, A Man Called Ove, and I know that Tom Hanks is starring in the new film that's come out, but I tried reading this. I wasn't enjoying it. I don't know why. I really struggled with it. Maybe I need to give it another pop. Maybe I wasn't in the mood for it. I always like to give a book a second chance. There are some books that you could not pay me to read again. I will get into that, I'm sure, in another video. But yeah, A Man Called Ove. Tried reading it, wasn't really enjoying it, but I hopefully will pick it up soon because I've heard people love it, and again, I want to trust everyone. The Miseducation of Evie Epworth. I have not heard a lot about this book. I bought this 2 years ago, I think. Another one, it's a bookstore recommendation. I got this from Waterstones in my university city. Really nice bookseller recommended it. I wanted something really feel good. See, I've got loads of books that I was in the mood for and I just didn't pick up because why? Another Another one from my big book haul was Pumpkinheads. Again, another graphic novel. I just love it. I'm so looking forward to reading it, and I want to save it till autumn, but I can't make promises. So I got a few of the Penguin mini modern classics. So we have Investigations of a Dog, Africa's Tarnished Name, and Notes on Nationalism, which they all sound really interesting, and they're like only 60 pages. They're really good and small. Another one from my recent book haul, Writers and Lovers. I've said a lot about it in there, so I will leave that for you to watch if you want to. Another one was You Deserve Each Other. Again, I heard it's fantastic. Very much looking forward to getting into it. Date Me, Bryson Keller, Natural Causes, which one of my dear bookstagram friends gifted to me a few years back very kindly. But yeah, forward to reading that. Then we've got Jodie Picoult, Wish You Were Here. Got a lot of her books, bearing in mind that I haven't read a lot of hers. A lot of these are new authors for me, so I'm really looking forward to finally picking up some of their work. The other one is Wuthering Heights. I've heard it's a little bit more dull. Not dull in that way, but as in it's quite dampening, depressing because of like the atmosphere at the time. So I'm trying to find a good time to pick this up, but I've got to read this at some point or another. But also, the Penguin classic cloth bounds are absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, I so desperately want to be a classics girly. Now, going on to the white books, although there's a little bit of blue mixed in there somewhere. I'm gonna go through these quickly because I have quite a few to go through yet. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. I've already read this book, but I have yet to read this copy of it. So I had 2 copies and I gifted one to my friend. Looking forward to reading that. We have The Cruel Prince, which I've heard fantastic things about. Please let me know if I'm completely off here, but I kind of get a similar vibe to Okatar. Could be completely off. Maybe I'm just putting all fantasy books into the same basket. I think I've heard some differing opinions on it. Be exciting to pick it up and form my own. Then got The Rosie Project, which has been on my bookcase for an embarrassingly long time. Another one that I'm really looking forward to reading. It seems to be an absolute favourite on Bookstagram. I think Everything. One of Us is next. I was meant to read this ages ago. Really liked One of Us is Lying. I know they've come out with the Netflix series, which I'm looking forward to watching at some point. I need to read this because I absolutely loved One of Us is Lying. So maybe I need to reread that before I read this, just to refresh my memory. Another one from my haul was Twisted Love. I've heard a lot of wonderful things about this book, so I'm very excited to read this. I'm halfway through this, so I'm technically going to involve it because I have put it off for a bit. I was meant to read this in December and didn't get around to finishing it. The Sad Ghost Club. I loved Sheets. I love those kind of graphic novels. It's definitely giving that kind of vibe. Next we have If It Bleeds by Stephen King, and I believe this is actually a couple of different books in one. Yeah, it's got If It Bleeds, Mr. Harrigan's Phone, which I've actually watched on Netflix, I think, and it was incredible. So I'm really looking forward to reading it. We've also got The Life of Chuck and Rat. So yeah, looking forward to reading that. And The Guest List, which I've partially read. I DNF, couldn't get into it, don't know why. Something's clearly not registering in my brain with this, but I think I would enjoy it. I think I was just very stressed with uni work at the time, so this went on the backbench. Okay, I'm kind of scared to talk about this woman because I'm scared of everyone that loves her, because I'm really scared of them sometimes because they are very passionate. This woman has questionably one of the most loyal fan bases. Confessed by Colleen Hoover. I've read a few of hers. I don't know if it's just not for me. Maybe this would be good, I'm not sure. I've heard November 9th is a bit better. I don't know, I just don't really vibe with her. I'm not gonna get into it, but yeah. On to the next. Get Alive, Chloe Brown. Another controversial opinion. I started reading it and had to DNF it. Actually, you can see where I got up to. Page 100. I'm not sure, I wasn't feeling it at the time. I will try to reread it. I want to give books a second chance, and this is definitely going to be one of them. Maybe I'm bad. It's kind of like another Milk and Honey kind of poem book. I like these kind of books. I think they're easy to read. And yeah, we've then got Our Song, which is a 4 people, 2 marriages, 1 fateful night to decide their past, present and future. Yeah. We've got The 5, which actually follows the life of the victims of Jack the Ripper, which I think is a really interesting take. Obviously obviously with Jack the Ripper, we always think of him. We never think of the victims and their individual lives. We all just made our assumptions up about it and what we were told. So this gives an exploration of the women that fell victim to him and more about them, their life, their story, which I think is quite nice because maybe we should honour their lives. I think it makes more sense to honour their lives than to think more about, oh, who was Jack the Ripper? It's actually a very sad story, and when you read about the people, it humanises the situation a bit more. So really looking forward to reading this. Been on my bookcase for a while now, so I need to have the opportunity to actually pick it up. Matt Haig, Reasons to Stay Alive, a kind of self-help book. We've got Eeny Meeny, which is meant to be phenomenal. I've heard fantastic things about it and I was kindly gifted this as well, so very much looking forward to getting into that. We've got Cheerleaders, which apparently is very similar to Riverdale. I got this a few years ago actually. I was a cheerleader, so I don't think I'd want to in this context. I'll read out the synopsis for this one. There are no more cheerleaders in the town of Sunnybrook. First there was the car accident, not long after the murders happened. Monica's sister was the last cheerleader to die. After her suicide, Sunnybrook High disbanded the cheer squad. No one wanted to be reminded of what happened. That was 5 years ago, and now the faculty and students at Sunnybrook want to remember the lost cheerleaders. But for Monica, it's not that easy. She just wants to forget. Only Monica's world is starting to unravel. There are letters in her stepdad's desk, an unearthed, years-old cell phone, a strange new friend at school. Whatever happened 5 years ago isn't over. Some people in the town know more than they're saying, and somehow Monica is at the centre of it all. There are no more cheerleaders in Sunnybrook, but that doesn't mean anyone else is safe. It sounds really good, really interesting, very much a Riverdale vibe to it. So those are my white cubbyhole books, if you will. I feel like I'm gonna have to change my positioning in a minute, but I've just got a few more books that are behind the bookcase. So we've got All the Bright Places. This I feel like is a tearjerker. I need to be in the right mood for this, I think. They both die in the end. I've heard interesting opinions about this book. Some people love it, some people hate it. Queen Bee, I've heard, again, differing things about this book, so I'm looking forward to getting into this as well. I feel like there's controversy over this book. I need to read more about it. I know that it was a book that everyone was reading when I was younger. I never had the guts, I think, to pick it up. It's Lovely Bones, which is quite a, I think, disturbing book. Definitely gonna be a hard read, would have to be in the right mindset for it, and I need to read more about it as well. So, and I found another Jojo Moyes book. You know Easter eggs in films where they just pop up and stuff? I feel like I have that, but it's Jojo Moyes. So we've got Jojo Moyes, Still Me. I've changed position now because we're getting higher up into the bookcase and I'm gonna be reaching, and I just feel like it's a little bit better if I just reach, tell you about it, carry on. Now we're on to red. We have some big boys here. Sarah J Maas, Crescent City. As you can tell, I'm loving Sarah right now. Sarah might be making me into a fantasy convert. I have so much confidence for someone that has literally read one fantasy book that she likes. Crescent City, it's like an urban fantasy. It's huge. It's like 700 pages. It's like 750 pages. But it's got the map here. It's just a beautiful book. I remember when I got that in lockdown, I was in awe. Like, I remember I picked it up in my hands and I was like, oh my goodness, that's a book. So we've got Outlawed, which I was gifted by Orion actually. It's like a feminist western. Love it. Love a niche genre. We have The Vanishing Half, which I have been needing to read since forever. Another book that's meant to be fantastic and I cannot wait to open it. We've then got from my book haul, When in Rome, another romance, Why We Sleep. It's just a deep dive into why we sleep and just the science behind it. It sounds very interesting. Poetry Pharmacy, which is a really cool concept. It's the tried and true prescriptions for the mind, heart and soul. All that she can see. This is like a real cozy read to it. It's about a woman, her bakery. Looking forward to picking this up. The Falling in Love montage. It's another sapphic romance. It's meant to be wonderful and very heartwarming, so I'm very much looking forward to diving in with this. 13 Treasures, which is again part of the series of 13. The Alchemist. I've heard that this is fantastic. It's very spiritual and meant to be a very good read. This is meant to be an incredible story, so it's homegoing, which I'm really looking forward to picking up, and this cover is beautiful and colourful. This is meant to be a phenomenal read, so I'm looking forward to picking this up. We've also got the other half of Augusta Hope. This is meant to be fantastic. So we're moving up again. I've had to move this up again because it's getting taller now. First book is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, and it's the same author of Dear Dolly. This is an autobiography about everything she knows about parties, dates, friends, jobs, life and love. So yeah, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This is meant to be fantastic. I read it a little while ago, or started reading it, and I just couldn't get into it. So hopefully a reread will change my mind about it a little bit. People love this book. I want to love it. Anne of Green Gables. This is a phenomenal version as well. Look at the... beautiful. Tiny, need to read it. A lot of people's favourite classic is Anne of Green Gables, so I need to know what the hype's about. Another book from my book haul video. We've got The Cat Who Saved Books Camp. A few of my bookstagram friends have read it and really enjoyed it, so looking forward to getting into this. Another one of the 13 book series. This is 13 Curses. I think this is the first one. Yeah, meant to be really magical. Really looking forward to picking this up. I just want to feel like a kid again, and I feel like this is the way to do it. The Lives We Touch. This is going to hurt. The Family Upstairs, which is kind of similar to what I was talking about earlier with that certain genre of thriller, which I'm looking forward to reading because I love that genre. Right, I'm gonna whiz through these next one. We've got Our Stop, which is meant to be a really cutesy romance. Ordinary People, which is meant to be superb. We've got Opposite of Always, which sounds incredible. I'm not ready to have my heart torn out over it, but it sounds phenomenal and I'm really looking forward to getting into it. I'll give you a synopsis read on this really quickly. I'm really sponging the battery for what it's worth because it just died on me, so I had to charge it up for about 5-10 minutes, so I'm hoping I can finish this video in that time. I'm not sure. Anyways, let me read the synopsis. When Jack meets Kate at a party, he knows he's falling hard. It's almost happily ever after until 6 months later Kate dies. And this love story should end there, but Kate's death sends Jack back in time to the moment they first met, giving him the chance to try and save her this time. When a choice he makes turns deadly for someone else, Jack has to work out what he's willing to do and let go to save the people he loves. This sounds like one of those like moral dilemma kind of stories. I'm really looking forward to reading it and finding out what he does. Don't know if I'm ready to be sad yet and to think that deep yet, but we'll see. Pink now. One from my haul that I did, which is Cat Lady. If you want to know about it, watch that video. We have Little Women, which I haven't read yet, need to read, and this edition looks absolutely gorgeous. Need to read this before I watch the film because I have a hang up about watching film before I read the book. Next we've got Queenie, which is another one I've had on my shelf forever. Need to read it. Heard conflicting opinions on this one as well, so looking forward to forming my own. Next we've got Anna Kay, which is another one that's been on my shelf forever, but this is meant to be really scandalous. Text is so small and I think it scares me. Of course, my camera had to die again. Girl He Used to Know, another one that I have been meaning to read for the longest time. Haven't had a chance to. The problem with a lot of these books is I have to be such a mood reader to actually pick them up, and I think I have to be in a certain mood to read this. Maybe I'll just shut up and I'll read it. Another book that I showed in my recently purchased haul. Funny you should ask. If you want to know more about it, you can go watch that video, but yeah, this sounds incredible. Same goes with Winter in Sokcho. Again, a bit of a different read to what I would normally read, so I'm looking forward to getting into this as well. This has been on my bookshelf for a worryingly long time. This is Pachinko. Again, need to read it, have no reason why I haven't. For some people it's all-time favorite read, so I feel like that's like my cue. Again, I just need to just grow up and stop buying books and read all of the wonderful books that I got on my bookcase already, because this is not right. I really enjoyed The Midnight Library and How to Stop Time, so I picked up The Dead Fathers Club. If you liked The Midnight Library and How to Stop Time, I'd recommend looking up this book and seeing if it's something that you would like. This is going to be my synopsis read for this shelf. So Punch in the Air sounds incredible. I've heard nothing but good things about it. Amal Shahid has always been an artist and a poet, but even in his diverse art school, because of a biased system he's seen as disruptive and unmotivated. Then, one fateful night, an altercation in a gentrifying neighbourhood escalates into tragedy. Boys just being boys turns out to be true only when those boys are white. The story that I think will be my life starts today. Suddenly, at 16 years old, Amal is convicted of a crime he didn't commit and is sent to prison. Despair and rage almost sinks him until he turns to the refuge of his words, his art. This never should have been his story, but can he change it? This sounds deeply moving and a really important read, because I think it shows a story through a lens that doesn't come from a place of privilege, which I think is very important to read about, to learn from, and gain a different perspective on things. Very, very intrigued to read this. And then we have The Life of Pi. I've watched the movie, so really looking forward to reading this. Okay, we're on to our last lot of books. These are the books that are on top of my bookcase. There's quite a few of them. Let me show you what I mean. I have these books here. So a lot of these books are just there for decoration. So for example, Girls Crystal Annual 1957. I love collecting old books from charity shops. I love going into the antique section and just picking a few things up. Like for example, I've got like a Peter Pan from like the 40s, and it's got a written note from the girl's father at the front of it, and you know, they're just, I think it's beautiful, especially children's books where they're like colouring in the pages and stuff. I love books that feel owned. Some of these are for decoration and some of these are on my TBR, so I'm just going to show you them. Okay, another classic, Pride and Prejudice. I've read some parts of it, I've watched the movie, need to read the book. A lot of people, it's their favourite classic. The Appeal, this sounds incredible. I love murder mysteries when they have like text messages. People were raving about it when it came out, so I'm very much looking forward to giving into the hype and reading it. Then we have The Time Traveller's Wife. I have not read this in years. I love the movie. I think incredible story. It just makes me cry every time. This one doesn't have its cover on it. I think it's in my bedroom somewhere. The Santorium. I started buddy reading this actually, but I need to get into it again. I think at the time I just wasn't feeling it. The thing is, I'm not ashamed to DNF a book, because if a book doesn't feel right in the moment, I'm not going to enjoy it. It's going to skew my perspective on the book, and it might be an all-time favourite, just the wrong time. There is such a thing as wrong time, right books, so I think that is the case with a lot of these, but especially Santorium, because I think it's the kind of book that I would love ordinarily. I just wasn't in the right mind frame for it. I'm gonna pick that up hopefully this year. The Sundown Motel. I am gagging to read this. It sounds incredible and this cover is beautiful. Been on my bookcase now for years. Maybe I should make it a challenge for me to read some of the oldest books on my bookcase. But I'm such a mood reader. I don't know, I'll think about it. This isn't on my TBR per se, but it's on my partner's. It's No Exit in German. Another book from my big haul video is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This I'm very excited to read. The Miseducation of Cameron Post. I mean, first of all, who is she? I started reading this a few years back and didn't finish it, so I'm excited to pick this up again. It'll be a reread, but I love this book. It's The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse. Absolutely beautiful. I'm going to show you a few of the graphics. It's just, oh, I haven't seen a book quite like it, but yeah, I want to reread it. It's really sweet, really cute, very wintry, so maybe I'll read it before spring comes. I think I just like feel-good books, in all honesty. I really like a book that makes me feel all like fuzzy. Next we have Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. This is what I was saying, I've got loads of Jodi Picoult, yet I have never read anything by her. We're down to the final two. We have Made It. I think I've counted around 150 books. It's a lot. Embarrassingly a lot. These are other books that I had in my recently purchased haul. I've got Ollie's Lost Kitten. You know, The Hungry Caterpillar and those kind of books. I kind of want to emulate that. What was the other one? It was like The Elephants in the Bathtub. I can't remember what it's called. I loved that book growing up. Maybe I'm just trying to relive my childhood. So I've got Ollie's Lost Kitten and then Pick a Pumpkin. I do not need to explain myself. So that was my entire physical TBR. There was about 150 books, I think. I will recount them and I'll put it in my title. There was a lot. There's a lot to go through and there's even more to read. So I am feeling quite guilty about all my recent purchases. I always feel guilty for inanimate objects. So I think I feel bad for my books that I haven't read. They're just collecting dust whilst I'm there going, hi guys, welcome to my new haul. But I will be sure to read a lot of them soon. I promise. I feel so bad. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and a fantastic week. But until next week, bye.
My darling, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you.